there was one thing I just wanted to point out to you that I just, again, there's lots of these points that people don't so much, give any credence to. But, in Israel, obviously, so the government here spends a lot of money on defense, right? On protecting us and the whole Iron Dome system to shoot down the rockets, and every home has a shelter, every business has a shelter, every school and everything. And everybody is pointing to, and again, it's a tragedy and it's awful, and nobody wants Palestinian civilians to die. There's no question about that. They're saying that there's 10,000 people that died. We maybe dispute those numbers, but there's no question that there's thousands of people that have been killed. There's no question about it.
And wounded, and starving.
Yes, and no question that not all of them are civilians either. There's no question that there's many Hamas terrorists that have been killed throughout this. There's no question. They wear plain clothes.
All that is debatable. All that is debatable. I want to share something maybe as an introduction. This morning I had a class. I teach students one-on-one, and it was a conversation class. And the student wanted to know more about this conflict. It's on people's minds, and I incorporated some of the things you told me. Some things I see a little bit differently, especially if we go back in the history. And he kept asking me but what about the state of Palestine in 1945 or 6? And I had to keep explaining that was not like a nation, and that was hard for him to get. And it's not because he's stupid; he's very intelligent, but he assumes that every patch on earth is somehow always a nation, and it was very hard for him to grasp that the Ottoman Empire fell apart and wasn't so clear what this part of the world was going to be. So and I repeated what you told me, that Arabs and Jews arrived together, that it was sparsely populated. So I am really listening to you.
No, I could tell. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, but if I disagree with you, then I'm also very serious. Huh?
Yes, no, 100%.
I do not accept this bombing campaign. I do not. I saw an interview with an American nurse who just got back from Gaza.
I saw it as well. I saw it.
It's seriously, Moshe, this is haunting me. I am losing sleep over this. Like I have a 4-year-old. I love him to bits. He's the most important thing in the world to me. And seeing children suffer like that, it breaks my heart.
I completely agree with you. I agree with you that it's an awful situation. I want to point something out though to you, just to kind of put this in perspective, right? So let me ask you something. If there would also be 10,000 dead Jews, right? Let's just say in this conflict there would also be already 10,000 Jews that were killed. And
I would find that horrible. I would find that horrible.
It would be horrible, and it would also put in perspective that this is a war, right? It would put that into perspective, that a war is a war, and people unfortunately die in a war.
This is very lopsided war.
Well, so that's what I want to point out to you. It's a lopsided war. They have sent into Israel, since this began, 9,000 rockets. That's not including the rockets that land in Gaza and kill their own civilians, not including those. Into Israel, between 8,500 and 9,000 rockets have landed in Israel. The Barzilai hospital in Ashkelon 3 times was hit, direct hits with rockets so far.
Can I explain what this does to me, or what is this? How I see that? And maybe this is totally wrong. I am willing to hear your perspective. Maybe it is morally completely wrong what I'm going to say, but this is how I experience that. Like I see people caged in. That's how I see it. You can maybe convince me that it's not like that. And then they cobble together crappy rockets, which they shoot at a country that can clearly take them down. So I'm like, okay, yeah, it is like some kind of show of force. Like we are still alive, we are still here, but they're not hitting anything.
Well, but that's exactly my point. That's because
if they would be using very sophisticated rockets and targeting chemical plants in Tel Aviv, then I would be like, oh, guys, oh, this
Well,
is too
I
much.
understand, but this is only because Israel has spent hundreds of millions of our dollars on protecting us. That's the reason that we're not dying
And you have
in
every right to do that.
thousands.
And I defend that. Of course, you should
Well,
have
so I
this Iron
understand,
Dome.
but
You should.
this
Yeah.
is the piece that I keep we keep on coming back to this. It's the fact that Jews are not dying in great numbers because our government
And
protects us.
I prefer to use the word Israelis because you're ignoring 20% of your
Okay,
population
you're
who are
right.
also being
Israelis, very good.
targeted.
Israelis, good, well said. There's many Arabs that have been killed in this as well. 100%.
Yeah, which is
100%.
completely ridiculous. Then if Arabs shooting Arabs,
100%.
yeah.
100%. So, okay, I'm sorry, absolutely correct. Israelis, you're absolutely correct. So I just like, to me, there's such like a moral, a lack of moral clarity. Like, let's say if every one of those rockets only killed one person each, they could kill a person. When they land,
Yeah.
they make an explosion.
They have some lethal force, of course.
Yes, there's no question
Yeah.
about it. And if it lands
Yeah.
on a building and the people are not in the shelter, it'll kill a family. That's what they will do. So so I'm just saying, to me, you have. I don't care that they're crappy rockets, that they don't have the great sophistication and all of that. They are trying every single day. It's not just like it's not just like it's not just, this is not like I don't know what the word I'm looking for.
Like
It's not,
fireworks.
well, I'm sorry.
So some people, Norman Finkelstein calls them fireworks. That's
symbolic.
exaggerated.
That's what I'm saying. It's not symbolic. It's not saying
Yeah.
symbolic. We're here. They are trying to kill us. It's only because Israel, for a decade, has been planning for, that this was going to end up happening, that they developed the Iron Dome and that they developed all the bomb shelters that we go into. But I just, to me, again, even if we accept their numbers, even if we say there's not a single Hamas person in all of those 10,000 people, if it's 10,000, and that there's not a single Hamas, it's all civilians, which I don't believe either of those things. But that's a terrible
I think the vast majority are civilians. I think.
Okay, I don't know whether we'll get to this. We'll see. Like March of Return, also what you wrote about. We'll get to that as well. But yes, I'm willing to concede also the majority are civilians. Yes, I will agree to that. But that's because their country is in a war and they do nothing to protect their people.
I agree.
Let's understand, but
I agree. I also agree.
Sure
Wait. I also agree that Hamas is very cynically benefiting from this.
Well, correct.
I agree. I think this is what they were hoping for.
I understand.
Let's have dead babies go across the globe.
What my point is, and this is what I said to Kim Iverson 6 months ago. I said this to her, and I said, to me, what people like her are guilty of is they could be using their platform. They could have been for 10 years. They could be using their platform to actually spotlight Hamas, to actually spotlight the people that are the direct cause of this death and destruction. Now that we're engaged in a war with them and their civilians are dying at a much higher rate than ours are, it's terrible and it looks lopsided. And I agree with you. We're losing the PR war. I completely agree with you in that respect. There's no question about it. But my point is, if people actually cared, like I wrote to you on Twitter, if people actually cared about the Palestinians, and people, not you, I'm not including you in this, but I'm saying if the people in the media, the people on the left, if they actually cared about the Palestinians and didn't focus on hating Israel, then for 10 years, 15 years already since Hamas took over, they would be talking about Hamas and talking about what they are doing to their own population. Do you even know that a few months ago, this is one of the things I wanted to show you. I'll put onto the screen 1 second. I'll share the screen with you. A few months ago, there were mass uprisings in Gaza against Hamas. There was street uprisings. There was a whole they crushed it, violently crushed it with live.
No, doesn't surprise me at all. No?
But this,
I'm not a fan of Hamas. I'm not waving Hamas flags.
But this is the point that people don't. 1 second, I'll share this with you. That people don't. They don't look at this. They don't care about this. This is not something that they point to. They're just happy to be able to blame it on Israel when they see that there's Israelis that are doing it. Here, this is one of these things. Palestinians. This is going back. What's the date on this? In July, right? This is a few months ago, the beginning of the summer. Palestinians are asking, why is this not being covered by Al Jazeera? right? Because it's Gazans rioting against Hamas, calling an end to their oppression and demanding in their words life conditions